we've rushed some things up. I will tell you, next time we meet is the 12th of February.
Yeah.
That's a Tuesday. Monday's a holiday, so keep that in the back of your head. We've always met on Monday nights, but that one's a Tuesday. So, including you.
Huh?
A Tuesday.
I got it. I think I have it all in my schedule right.
All right, so we are now moving to our fourth module. So let's review a little bit. What do we talk about when we mean our instructional environment? What are some things that come into play? Talk about them in your table. Seating arrangement. Instructional environment.
She said classroom setup. Yes. What about seats? Like how far away should you be from your kids?
Oh, there's a green zone, there's a red zone, a yellow zone.
2 seats away, roughly.
Football field, 2 yards.
Yeah, football field, 2 yards. Perfect.
Can you hit him with the football or?
Go run! I want you to pick that leaf off of that ivy wall. Come back. That's the wrong one. Do the right one.
That's a great idea. I never did that.
I had a friend that was coaching freshman baseball, and the kid came late. That's what he said. Go pick me your ivy leaf. That's the wrong one. Go get me another one. Ran all practice.
Aw, that would be me.
What else did we say about instructional environment? What about the walls?
Minimal.
Yeah, kind of be careful because they could be a what?
Distraction.
Distraction. Good.
Age appropriate.
Good. All right. Classroom expectations. Again, in your groups, in your table groups. Good. Good. I heard it again.
Teach you. I wish I'd used one of those too.
Review those.
Expectations. Talked about teach twos. I heard it twice. What else?
Yeah, same. We're going over this right now. And then I don't want to hear anyone else.
Don't ask me again.
Or like
I was always so
High expectations.
Good.
maybe if we could get some
I never
like
thought that was such a great idea until, and when I went to get trained in this, that was
I don't know, because at middle school that's my
I think it's so awesome. I never did. Well, my best friend's still teaching, and
Set out an accident.
she does it. I don't
Every
know.
other. Oh, what did I say?
She's very type A.
and I'm not.
I'm not sure you can. I can't. Was my boss when I was at the high school. And I would tell the kids, hey,
She was raising her
handbook says no swearing.
one time playing, and she was sitting on
Says I'm supposed to write
don't
her
touch me, don't touch me, don't
I'm
touch me.
lazy. I don't want to.
Go take a shower, and then we'll talk. And I'm like,
If you do
are
10
you serious?
push-ups, I can't get.
You're not extreme.
It worked.
She
And
is.
then I learned all the Spanish bad words. Oh no, I did that too. You want the referral or do you want the 10 push-ups? And then sometimes they would do like a girl in a dress. I can't do push-ups. I'm not good with jumping jacks.
I do that, but nothing works anymore, so I'm having to switch to burpees.
Oh. But you can do
I
that.
like that. I'm like, there's
Well,
something on the floor.
Not.
There's an
Not a
Maybe the whole class does it.
It's not mine.
I heard a bad word. The whole class.
I
And
know.
you
I was like,
right?
we can wait for lunch.
You can get away with it that way.
Because it wasn't mandatory, because it was an option, I got away with it.
Then
But they do it as corporal punishment, so then,
But I couldn't
used to tell
force
them,
a kid to do it. So, well, you have a choice.
yeah, true.
whoever missed me
And
during
what I
class,
would,
congratulations.
inevitably,
You just
I have
earned
a
the right
handful
to
of
clean
years
the floor
where
before
I
you
wanted
need
to do
to.
the push-ups and interviews,
And they did it.
and I would
They did it.
forget to write
Then
the
they, I
referral.
mean, they couldn't start on it. So, all right.
Yeah, because they keep saying, bring back the push-ups. Because that's what I would do. Like, you
And I said,
can do the push-ups. Or the wall sits. Or you can
Especially
do
for
jumping
kids that
jacks.
have work.
And pay for it.
But I found that when things came in,
Stop.
it kind of created a different environment. Now, I'm not sure anymore, and this thing was 15 years ago. If we can get away with that now. So I would check your PE, like I said, I heard one bad word, the whole class is going down. And then they'll pick on each other.
Peer pressure,
But something like that, maybe there's something else that can happen. Oh, you gotta stand up for 10 minutes now, or whatever. You lost your chair for 10 minutes for the word. That's not horrible.
Oh no,
The thing is that just teaching a running
sound. That's right. That's what.
like just taking roll me a quarter. Because some of the other kids
Every time you say that word.
in the medical term classes, They have to pay a quarter every time they say something bad.
In Trisha Blovin's class, she has senior writing, and they say a bad word, she makes them restate the sentence with a different word. And they have to start the sentence with, I'm sorry, Miss Blevins, I should have said the instead. What we're finding, though, is that it is so pervasive in the homes that it's normal vocabulary. And so
They don't realize they're saying. They don't know how
I'll
to
give you an
code.
example, it's kind of funny. My wife's preschool over at Washington, she had a 3-year-old. Teacher, I shit my panties. We don't use the word shit in class, we say poop. Okay. Teacher, I pooped my panties. Alright, well, let's get them cleaned up. I need new panties because there's shit in them. She's also dig out the laugh, but it's normal vocabulary at home. And
Like you said, from when they're little, but it's not in our home, and my girls are like truck drivers. And we're constantly having to tell them, maybe they can start paying me for their bad
you don't watch TV anymore, it's on TV.
Yeah, and music.
Not even on the movie channel, it's like on there, right?
Why don't they before they send it?
Alright, sorry guys. Classroom expectations. One of the things I did not hear was meaning business and exploiting proximity and moving in, moving out. The Queen Victoria, I am not amused look. All of that is part of classroom expectations. I heard teach tos, which also connect to procedures. You have 3 to 5 classroom rules, but 100 procedures. And so those, and we talked about high expectations. I heard it from this table, having high expectations, and that we even remember, we asked you who your favorite teacher was, and did they have low expectations for behavior and academics or high? And you all said they had high, and they challenged me, and the data across the nation says the same, high expectations. All right, lesson planning. Again, talk about those in your table groups. And I just took the posters down to remind you. Lesson planning.
That's what I was doing. Yeah. But like lesson plan, we did 3 rounds, because you guys didn't, know
Oh, the chunking
Most years are scripted now.
down into facing, chunking.
I know what I'm supposed to be teaching. I know the standards. I know that this week is this phonics, next week is that phonics. But like this week is long eye, but I'm not teaching it phonics. This week we're gonna
What do they need to know? How do they know they got it? And what am I going to do if I don't?
If you go to the government, you can say long or short, because you don't, is that capital or short? They'll say it says its name or it says its sound.
Yeah, make sure it say its name.
Doesn't your PLC meet together?
Yeah, we all meet and all that stuff, yeah.
So are you using that?
Our PLC when we except 15 days notice. We talk about what we're doing, like we share resources.
That's an awesome thing. I hate when they tell you what.
Superintendent just came out and said they're going to give you 5 more days for planning next year. You're going to extend your contract by 5 days. That's more money.
I'd have a week of vacation. Not a week of plan.
But you're going to get paid for those days.
But it's gonna be
But my understanding was that it wasn't admin-led, grade level led. And I'm guessing it's not 5 days in a row, it's going to be 5 days. All right, so we talked about teaching to mastery, we talked about step by step, we talked about visual VIP, right?
Visual step by
Visual instructional plan and having, especially like I showed you the math step by step. We also talked about relating to your students and helping them understand that you really care about them. Going back to even to instructional environment, really creating a safe environment, which means that kids aren't getting up out of their seats and going crazy or insulting each other or taking each other's stuff or taking your stuff or whatever. Yeah, lesson planning. We spent quite a bit of time on lesson planning. Why does lesson planning and classroom management go hand in hand?
If your lesson is
That's correct.
What'd she say?
She said there is no
Yeah.
there is no classroom manager, there's no lesson planning, right? But even a poor one, right? I had rookie teachers, new teachers that wanted to be cool, and all right, the last 10 minutes, especially in secondary, all right, we have 10 minutes left over, why don't you pull out study materials from your other class, or why don't you read a book, or essentially what they were saying is, it's code for, we have 10 minutes of free time.
But my class isn't important enough to fill the whole time.
What's gonna, yeah, right? What's gonna happen in that 10 minutes?
Nothing.
Worse than nothing.
Chaos.
Even good kids, if bored, what will they do? Come on, what will you do if
I
you're
don't
bored?
mind.
I text, talk.
So if you're in a conference, a 2.5-hour conference, right? And they got a breakout session, you go to the breakout session, you're in the back room, and you go, oh man, this is the wrong one, this doesn't apply to me. What do?
Check
Come on.
out.
Yeah.
Leave.
You might leave. You might. My wife has a strategy, she has to go to the bathroom, and she ends up going to the bathroom 8-10 times a day. Because she can't sit still. She just can't sit still, she gotta get up. So she may not have to go to the bathroom, but she gets a little walk and comes back. What do you guys do? Draw? How many of you doodle? Come on now. How many of you break out your games on your phone and you play them under the table? Right? Or you're texting?
Social
Right?
media.
Or
Hands down.
reading ESPN, right?
To yourself, or?
Well, to like in class,
She
like
said,
if I was in high school.
are you kidding me? If I'm bored, I'm still paying
I try to
attention because I was
memorize
in that.
Because you're a good person. I was gonna jump in on the rapport thing, which of course we talked about with expectations. Minarets High School in O'Neill's up towards Chuck Chansey, they're kind of a warm, fuzzy environment, very warm and fuzzy. And so a lot of the alternative kids end up there. And they had a thing last week that was No Name Calling Day, I think it was. And they talked about inclusion and it was such a big deal, and I guess the whole school participated, which they can do with 500 kids. But I thought that's kind of a cool thing, because if nothing else, they had them write on these papers names that they've been called. And I was in a meeting for something, and I was looking around reading them, and I was, of course, not paying attention to the lesson, what I was there for. And I was reading all the things, and I was like, this is such a cool idea. And Sunnyside has a Don't Laugh at Me program, if anybody's familiar with that. And the teacher there, when she was at our school, she did a diversity day. She had speakers coming from everywhere. And I was in the classroom for this one, well, she was in my classroom, and she was an African-American lady from Jamaica, and she starts talking. And she was great. And when she was done, she came back to the back of the room, and I said, I'm just curious, how long did you live in Jamaica? Because obviously she doesn't live there now. And she said, oh, I've been there, I was there from da-da-da-da-da. And I said, well, my grandfather was a missionary. He was an overseer for the Church of God there. And she said, what's his name? It wouldn't be Brother Taylor, would it? And I said, yeah. She said, you look just like him. And I said, you're kidding me. She goes, no, I went to his church. How small of a world is that, right? But it was cool because the teacher's name is Cindy Mello, and she was awesome about bringing kids together and kids doing that kind of stuff. And then at Sunnyside, she started the Don't Laugh at Me, and I mean, it's massive.
They just had their whole diversity week in Raleigh this last week.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
I just saw her pictures from the Don't Laugh at Me, and I was like, she's done such an awesome job there, and the community, Sunnyside's known for that, especially in a Fresno Unified school with very diverse. I mean, she's been awesome about that. So I wanted to talk about those are the kind of things too that break down walls and, you know, bring kids together and stuff like that. So anyway, sorry, segue.
All right, let's talk about accountability while we're reviewing here. We talked about pacing. Why is pacing important?
Because you don't want to bore your students, but you don't want to lose them either.
How much time, we talked about attention span, that kind of goes with pacing. How does that play into it?
Whatever their age is, what their time limit is. Or-
Can you kind of feel when you're losing attention? Can you feel it with have you ever had to speak to adults and they're losing attention?
Adults are the worst. And I think teachers are the worst when we get in meetings. Like, oh.
We talk about chunking, that goes along with our step-by-step and mastery of these steps. It was Vince Lombardi that says it's not practice that makes perfect, but perfect practice makes perfect. Right? And how do you get into Carnegie Hall to play? Practice, practice, practice. Good. Costas levels of inquiry, level of knowledge. We talked about that quite a bit last time. We had some handouts that went with it. Okay. The best lessons, books, and materials in the world won't get students excited about learning and willing to work hard if they're not motivated. Let me ask, just as an aside, as I'm doing observations and talking to different teachers, what do you think is the #1 subject that disengages students? Math? Okay, even in first grade math? What do y'all say?
English.
English? Reading? History? All right. So how do we, kind of like Madeline Hunter, how do we get them hooked in? How do we engage them? How do we motivate them? How do we help them relate to or understand that this is important? I mean, for instance, how many of you, since leaving high school, have used Algebra 2? Anybody? One? Any tricks? Y'all take pre-trig in high school?
It's college.
College, yeah, college.
Have you used it?
I recently
Since
bought
college.
some tile.
Since college?
Well,
I did that
not since college, I guess. But
Not
I was
since
already out
college.
of high school, so sort of.
In your current job, are you using it at all?
We use a little bit of algebra,
A little bit of algebra, but
but not algebra 2.
all right. Do kids know this?
Yeah.
They kind of get it, right? So how do you take math and help them understand it so that they're motivated to know it's important? But if you're an Algebra 2 or higher teacher, I don't have anything for you. How do you get first graders to love math?
Give them manipulatives.
Manipulatives, make it fun. All right.
Connect it to their life as well. Make them understand why.
That's actually one of the California standards for the teaching profession, is relating the material back to their personal life and culture. All right, so in kindergarten you have a 100-day calendar, right? You're counting every day. Well, that's kind of interesting. Or how many days till Christmas and how many days till this, right? They're counting. How do we do that in 6th grade? We're looking at what? Fractions and decimals, and we're beginning stages of pre-algebra. How do we get 6th graders in that?
Pizza and money.
Pizza, money,
Pie.
good. So we make it applied, don't we? Right? We say, all right, I'm going to pay you $4,626 a month, but you're going to lose 32% of that in taxes. How much money do you get when it's left over? I don't know. Well, we need to learn how to multiply decimals, don't we?
Well, in taxes, that's pretty fun to do because they have no idea. And then I could do this with Avid. I didn't teach math, but I used to make them pair up, and they had roommates, and they had to actually call like apartment buildings to find out what the deposit is, and they had to keep track of it all, and they had to set up their PG&E, and they had to find out what the deposit was. And let me tell you, so many kids, I got in an argument with one kid, and he said, oh, my mom doesn't spend that much in groceries, it's about $100 a week. And I said, really? Let's call your mom. And I said, and if I win, you're bringing me a donut. So we called his mom, and she was on speakerphone, and she started laughing. And she says, okay, Jay, that tells me how much you don't know. She said, I spend between $350 and $500 a week. And he was like he had no idea, you know. And then when they see how much it costs to have cable and Wi-Fi, all of a sudden it changes their view. And I had them paired up with wives and husbands sometimes. Like supposedly they had a husband, not anybody literal. And a lot of the husbands said, can I just get rid of my wife because of all the cosmetics and stuff that we want? And so I was like, no, it doesn't work that way. You can't sell your child. It doesn't work that way. But it was funny because the realization and the math became real.
Yeah.
Very real.
I have a teenager at home that wants to get a tattoo. She's 18, wants to get a tattoo. And I'm thinking that's a decision you probably should make when you've had a little bit of life under your belt. And I don't really think that an 18-year-old is ready to get a tattoo. That's my opinion. You might have a different opinion, and that's fine. but it's my house and my rules. What she doesn't know is when she decides to sneak out and get the tattoo, I'm going to turn around and say, well, you're making adult decisions. Now you have adult responsibilities. You will now be in charge of paying your own car insurance and your own cell phone bill. She doesn't know that's coming, but that's what I'm going to do. And it's going to cost her about $300 a month, of which she doesn't have. And when she says that's not fair, I'm going to say, well, wait a minute. On the one hand, you want to make adult decisions, but you still want to be a child and have me pay for everything. You can't have it both ways. Either
And
you're
you're
an
living
adult
under my roof.
and take care of your own responsibilities, or you're letting me take care of it and then I make the rules. Which way do you want it? So we're going to find out, and she's going to be really upset when that
Is
happens.
she gonna sneak out and do it?
I think she will.
I waited till I was 40, so I met the.
When she has enough money, I think she will.
My mom literally thought it was a henna for
What does a
15
tattoo
years.
cost nowadays? I don't
It
know.
depends.
It just depends.
What about something like this by this, 4x4?
What depends? Color, detail, shading.
I don't know.
Who you go to?
Yeah.
What's an
Some
average?
people have like a
Three,
limit, like
$400.
even how small it is, it'll still be $100. Like that's
Okay.
their.
But like the thing I have on my leg, that's a full leg, stringed out or lined out. It was 100, but the girl was good, and she was fast,
So 100 to 300, does that sound about right?
at least.
Probably more than 100.
She was about 100 an hour, and that's how, 50 an hour, and that was how long I sat, was two hours. But it can be expensive. Not that I have that many, I'm just saying.
So now we're talking about money, and all of a sudden your interest is picked up. I thought tattoos. Now can we start talking about numbers? What if I gave you 32% off? What is that?
Oh, that's cool.
Right? Or
Nice
or
segue.
or if I said I'm gonna knock off $20. How much of a percentage did I knock off? Right? This is some of the ways that you can get them engaged. Okay, the second one, I heard English, but I actually believe that history is number 2. Math is number 1, I think. History is number 2. How do you get kids involved?
Well, I watched on a TED Talk and they said, when you take a group selfie, what are you looking at first when you look at it? You look for yourself. But when kids are reading these books, they're not seeing themselves in them. They're not seeing them represented, and like when do we talk about Native Americans? I don't know, do you still talk about Native Americans?
4th grade.
Okay.
1st grade and 4th grade.
Pilgrims and Native Americans, which is a whole nother issue. Okay?
Yeah, and we don't get the truth on that, right?
Yeah.
It's the
And then
fuzzy.
in world history, which is what I teach, we teach a very specific section of the world. We're not going into great detail, and even though those sections are in the book, they're very glossed over. We maybe spend a day on them, so it's like they're not seeing that representation that's like intriguing them in themselves, and then they don't have the option to be like potentially focused world history in this area, or an elective perhaps of if you wanted to know like African American studies or Asian studies or Chicano studies or whatever. We don't have that representation for them, so that it's harder for that buy-in for them because they don't
So-
see themselves in that.
So what about projects that allow them to bring and teach their classmates? Like, you know, if you have a Islamic student, I mean, you can't specify, hey, anybody Islamic? But you could say, you know, I want you guys to take this chance, and this is what the project's gonna be, and here's the outlines, and whether it's a religion or culture or an experience. Because like, I think for me, I had 2 Hmong girls. This was a huge revelation to me. And I'm a history major, which is sad. But anyway, these 2 girls, I didn't realize they were sisters, first of all. That was my bad. But they were, they did a History Day project, and I was asked to judge it. And so I came out. And they had the Secret War. And I was like, what's the Secret War? I don't know what the Secret War is. So I sat down to this one kid's project, and she had the story blanket that they have, and then pictures. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. And so she was explaining it through the blanket, blah, blah, blah. And she said there was a picture in the middle, and there was a man with a number and a baby. And I said, oh, did you just get this off the internet? She goes, no, Miss Taylor, that's my family. I'm the baby. And they were in Thailand, you know, in the refugee camps, and they were getting ready to come over. And when she said that, I just kind of went, whoa. Like all of a sudden it was real to me. Like this kid actually went through what I've heard about. And I realized, she said, Miss Taylor, why don't we learn about this in history? I'm like, man, that's a great question. I go, why don't you make a change? Why don't you do something? She goes, what would I do? I said, well, you need to get in at our district office, and then you need to go to the county, and she did all of that and developed a curriculum. And now I think Fresno Unified is using it, maybe Central Unified as well, but it's a whole Hmong culture because she wasn't happy not seeing representations, especially when Fresno is we're so populated, with Southeast Asians, and we need to know the culture because they're a huge part of our culture, our community, our lives. And so it was huge to me that, first of all, it was a rude awakening, but then it was also, I had to think of a way to keep this kid engaged and not feel defeated. And how many kids would take it that far? Now she's the president, she was the president of the Hmong Association at Fresno State. I mean, amazing kid, but had to tie it in somehow, right? And I wasn't a history teacher, but it was amazing to me to see how important it was to her and how motivated she was when she did have somebody go, yeah, go for it. And she did. And apparently every door she knocked on was open to it, which helped also. Sorry.
I have some radical ideas about teaching history. One of them is to trace one theme from as far back as the Egyptians all the way to today, and that one of them would be cotton, Egyptian cotton, right? And if you look at it and how it affected even the revolution between America and Britain, and the cotton gin and slavery, and still today how it settled the western part of the United States, and how it affects prices, and now you can even get into global markets, and how all of our clothes are made overseas, but the product comes from Texas and Arizona. It used to be California. That's one idea. Another is helping kids live the history. So Bill Coate had the Madera method, and he would take kids on a wagon train, literally for 3 weeks. And they would go from places like Yuma, Arizona, back to California on a wagon train, and live in the wagons, and they had to walk.
Well, didn't his classes pick a project every year?
That's the second thing that he did. The second thing is they did a history of somebody that was in Madera, and they would do all kinds of crazy research and write this big article about it.
It was amazing.
It was. And now you're adding, and I think the key to history is cross-curricular discipline. So now we're looking at this research that he's doing. Well, that pulls in a ton of English. They're reading, they're writing, they're proofing, they're editing, they're publishing, all kinds of things that go into that. The other is to, as we talked about with the Hmong example, is to simply relate it to where they're at. And one of the things that is consistent throughout history is immigration. And how does that work? And we see immigration today in a different lens than we would have seen immigration 100 years ago. It was mostly Eastern Europeans, Slavics and Polacks, and right, different kind of religion and different kind of language and different kind of way of looking. Before that, if you go back to the gold rush, and you have a big influx of Chinese immigrants. Before that, you had the potato famine in Ireland. And when we talk about discrimination, we often think of skin color, but I think discrimination by and large starts with economics first. And I tell the story that historically back in Northern Europe, in England and Ireland, the Irish people were the servants. They were the ones that took care of the chamber pots. They were back in the day, what we're talking about, firemen and policemen were not noble jobs. Okay? And the Irish were historically the firemen and the policemen and the chambermaids, and right? They did all the bad jobs in England, and that was fine until they ran out of food. And the potato famine happened, and so the Irish immigrated to the United States, but guess what? So did the discrimination. And so it was the Irish that built the railroad from Missouri to Utah. It was the Irish that took on the police and fire. And if you go to Chicago and if you go to Boston, you're going to find a lot of Irish are still firemen and policemen in those areas. And they changed their names, right? Instead of McLaren, it just became Claren or whatever. They dropped the Mick off of their name. or they dropped the O instead of O'Reilly, it just became Riley and that kind of thing. It's very interesting how all that comes into play. You know these DNA tests that they have now at the drugstore are like $25. But I found out something interesting, and I went, okay, that's kind of interesting. I had these little bumps on my hand, right here and right here. What the heck? Well, my buddy's a physical therapist, and I went fishing with him. I said, Paul, what the heck is this? He goes, that's Pope's disease. Or he said, Dutra something or other contraction. What does that mean? He says, eventually your hand's going to be like the Pope, and you won't be able to open your fingers. What? So pretty soon.
Well, I think the fact that he likened you to the Pope is a little.
There you go. My hands are going to be like this. Well, I did some research, and it's actually also known as Viking's disease because it's hereditary in people from Northern European descent. Huh. Males, mostly. But, and there's some things they can do. They can cortisone it. They can put some enzymes in there. It's a calcium buildup on the tendons. And eventually, if have to, they can do surgery, and it's not like incurable. Because if I can't clip a fry rod, then life is over.
But wouldn't it be cool with Ancestry to also, like, if you have I have a membership, and I spend a lot of time on it. But if you have a membership, you could research any of your kids too. So what a cool thing to share that with them, and all of a sudden, all this matters. Like I found out I was primarily Scottish. I'm like, what? And
hi, Lassie.
I know. And then I started doing the research, and I was like, that is so cool. But then I also found out that I was related to the Brewsters, who the actual minister that caused the witch hunt in Salem. Yeah, I'm related to him directly. And so I was like, ugh. But you know, it's kind of cool, and all of a sudden, this world becomes smaller because I've got ties to these things.
Well,
and I think the kids would feel that way too.
Like, you were there, I mean, technically.
Yeah. I think it was interesting too. Sorry, I took a group of kids to New York, and we went to Ellis Island, and you know you can research and all that in there. And we took 60 kids. That was a big mistake. But anyway, we were there, and I was like, you guys, this is so cool. This is where your family came through. And my African American kids said nope, and they sat out on the lawn. And at first I didn't get it, like totally didn't get it, because you know I was like so focused, and then all of a sudden I went, oh crap. Like, true. You know, their names aren't going to be in the database. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I mean, I'm still glad we went, but I should have probably prefaced that with a lesson, and I didn't.
Angel Island in San Francisco is the same thing?
Yeah.
The other thing is that some teachers are doing, I know 4th grade brings out the Gold Rush to the site, right? And they have the
Gold
we used to go to Columbia State Park. And now they have instead they come to us. I have some rural U.S. history teachers at the high school that are doing projects, and she collects cardboard boxes and makes them get into groups and make a shanty town, a Hooverville.
Oh wow!
And then they have to like show how they would sleep in it, sit up in it, and how it would look, and is it weather resistant, and those kind of things. That kind of tends to bring history to life. So that's, I think that it goes back to again what we're talking about with math is applying it, seeing it in their own lives.
So one of the things, and I was in middle school a long time ago, but I still remember that we ran and basically did a political convention.
Yes.
And voted for, so my 8th grade class we went through, and everybody was representing the state. Failed the project because we voted for the other guy. We were the electors who didn't follow their state rules.
Wow.
But yeah, it was it was great when we started talking about, how does this happen? How are, the electors are, elected by their states, and they have to then vote for,
They used to have a organization called Model UN. And they would really have to vote and do some things.
I know a lot of you are probably sitting there going, yeah, right, we're pretty scripted, we don't have time to do all this fun crap, right? One of the reasons why I want to train teachers is I want you guys to realize that those kind of activities will get them so much more engaged, so much more, they'll feel safe in your classroom. Those are all the things that bring up rapport. And if you have to venture off the script, I mean, don't do it on a day you're being eval, but I mean, it is important to bring the kids into it. And I've never been one that followed rules, which has gotten me in the principal's office quite a few times. But it's important for you to remember that don't get bogged down so much in the logistics and the legislation. It's still important for you to bring up rapport and connect with your kids and give them something that they enjoy doing in your classroom. Besides, especially if you teach math or history, one of the classes that they really don't like. If you're elementary and middle school, well, elementary, it's important for these kids just to connect. And as soon as you've connected with them, you've got them. You've got them.
I think the disservice that we've done is broken up everything into our subject areas of expertise. But when we cross-pollinate, when we start looking at science and think about how much power it takes to launch a rocket, and you can do all kinds of things from straws to like model rockets, right? We were just at FFA, or 4-H, I'm sorry, and they were launching a rocket. My son went 2,000 feet in the air, right? How much thrust does it take? That's all physics, that's all math, right? And now you can start talking about that. And then you can write a story about it, or then you can write research about it, right? Or you can have the students write step-by-step instructions on how they put together, on and on and on. These projects really do spur other assignments that you can do to get them motivated. Are you talking, you move on?
Yeah.
Let's talk about PAT. Preferred activity time. All right. So imagine, well, this is the story. The son comes to the dad and says, "Hey, Dad, going to a party on Friday night. I need to buy the soda and the potato chips, but so can you give me $20?" The dad says, "Well, I already gave you an allowance." I know, Dad, but I already spent it, and I got to bring the potato chips and the soda. And the dad says, "Well, what are you going to do?" And the kid was kind of perplexed, and the dad said, "I don't loan money. I'll give you your allowance, but I don't loan money." And made the kid solve the problem on their own. And the kid kind of began to realize, gosh, I do have some money, but I need to, what is that word we don't like? Budget, right? I have a budget in my family. As soon as I get to the limit of my spending, I try to budget as far as possible, right? She got it. Push it, budget, right?
It's Monday.
You can't manage money until you have money to manage, right? If you're raising children and you're constantly giving them money every time they have a need, what's going to happen as they get older?
I think you mean it.
Hey, I need money. What do? Go to Mom and Dad. Mom, can I have $20? Except now it's what? Now can I have $100? Or, hey, I need a down payment for my car. Can I have $2,000 or whatever? You want your kids to learn how to budget money, so you give them an allowance, or you make them get a job, or you stop buying certain things for them and make them go buy their own things so they learn how to manage their money. Did your parents do that to you?
Nope.
At some point, did they cut you off?
Yeah.
And you had to figure out how to buy it, right? And then you realized, I hear stories of, I loved all these great clothes, and then when I figured out that I had to buy my own clothes, I was like, okay, I'm going to Walmart, where's the clearance sale, right? Because we have to figure out how to balance our budget, our money. How about this one? Think about this. Kids will not manage time until they have time to manage. And there's a reason why we say PAT until now, because it works and it works well, but it only works well with all the other things that we've taught you. So if you cherry pick this out of the system and do nothing else, it'll work for a while, and then after a while it stops working. But if you use it with your system, it will work. Preferred activity time. Sounds like, hey, you can go have free time and play games on the computer, you can go watch YouTube, you can sit in the beanbag chair with your magazine, and that is not preferred activity time. Preferred activity time still has to be tied to academic standards. So one example is I have a high school teacher who uses Jeopardy to review for the test. Okay? And when they play Jeopardy, you would think there's a party going on, and there's all kind of shouting and yelling, and the kids jumping up and down. But what are they doing? They are reviewing all the material for the test. They're putting it in from short-term memory into long-term memory. Absolutely tied to standards. Do y'all have time, except for PE, where kids are grabbing Chromebooks and getting on there and doing something? And do most of them like that?
Yes.
Okay, or they're getting on the iPads, or do you have that in first grade? Some kind of electronic? And do they like it?
Yeah, depends on
Okay. That's a preferred activity, all right? Do you have some sort of art that you're doing in elementary class? The younger, the more art you're doing. Do they like that time? Is it still tied to standards? Yes, it's still part of your lesson plans, but it is also something kids like to do. We call that preferred activity time, okay? All right, let's talk about a couple of things.
You killed my other slides? What?
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm over it.
All right. What did I pass through? Free motivation, students enjoy activity. I think I said that. PAT can be thought of as a gift.
Look, I
with
quoted
educational
Jones.
purpose.
That's a present.
You already do PATs. We want you to start thinking about them. But let me get to explain it first, and then explain the activities. All right. So a preferred activity, and this ends.
Do you give them an option, or do you all do it?
It depends. There's two different kinds, and they can earn. You'll hear this, but there's a class motivation where you can just keep track, and if they're bad, you take time away, or if they're not on task, we're not supposed to use the word bad. But
Okay.
they can also earn individual time.
Whether it's a daily occurrence or it's something that you do every couple of days or once a week, the idea is the younger the kids, the more frequently you're doing this. But you know that, let's say on Wednesday afternoon, that you need 30 minutes to do something that you know the kids are going to enjoy. They're going to enjoy this, but I need 30 minutes. So you say, I'm going to just give you, just like an allowance, like your parents gave you, I'm going to give you 10 minutes of PAT. And you know in the back of your mind that you need 30. All right. So then you set up a system of, some of them are bonus, and some of them are automatic. PAT minutes. All right, so for instance, in high school, we'll say, if everybody's sitting down with their notebooks out and their pens out, or pencils out, before the bell rings, that's an automatic 2 minutes. Okay? If, so these are automatic bonus PAT. All right? Another one might be, if nobody has to go to the bathroom in the next 2 hours, I'll give you another minute, automatic. All right? Those are automatic PAT. Bonus minutes come into play when you're trying to run a transition, for instance, and you say, okay, we have 3 minutes to transition from math to science, so I need you to do blah, 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 blah. Go. If they finish before the allotted 3 minutes, then you say, all right, you get an extra minute or two, whatever you want to say. Okay? And you begin to add it up, and you know that your goal eventually is to get it to 30 minutes. Secondary classes, you can even have them compete against one another, see if they can add up their minutes. Who's going to get the most, or who gets them faster. There are also ways to take away time. So we're going to call it the plus time and the minus time. Minus time is taken away in seconds. You add minutes, you take away seconds. So let's say we have 3 minutes to transition, and it takes them 3 minutes and 10 seconds. What do you think is the natural thing to do?
Take away 10 seconds.
Oh gosh, we're going to minus 10 seconds. Right? Why? Because we never want our negatives to be bigger than our positives. For several reasons. One, it ruins the incentive. Oh gosh, we're going to lose time. We always lose time. The second is that you can do this more frequently than you can add. But if you did this 6 times, you've only taken away 1 minute. Right? You can do this if you have a small group setting where you're sitting at the table and this group over here that's supposed to be in station is goofing around. And you can even say, let's say that they're the Redbird station. Redbirds! And you just look at the watch. And they all know what that means. What does that mean? In a moment, I'm going to get up and take away seconds. Oh, shh, 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 right? What we find with the bonus PAT is that kids start getting motivated by it and they start policing each other. So instead of 38 kids to one teacher, now it's 38-7 kids on that one 38th kid. Shh, Brian, be quiet, right? And you could start thinking about bonuses for things like lining up for lunch. Okay, if we can line up in 45 seconds in a straight line without talking, we'll get 3 extra bonus minutes. Go. Let's see if they can do it. Oh, I heard talking. I guess we don't get the bonus points today. Right? And they'll start working on each other. Now the key though is that PAT has to be fun. Has to be. It can't be something that kids don't want to do.
So it came up that the younger kids don't really have a concept of time. Okay, so you could do pluses and negatives. You could do anything. In their mind, especially at that age, it's just, oh, cool, cool, cool. They know what the end result is, but they also know that if you're taking it away, they're also knowing they're losing that time. It doesn't have to be, if they don't have a concept of time, then use visual symbols, and that'll work with them.
I did group points for a while, but then what do you do when the kids start yelling like, "Ashton, it's your fault. We didn't get points." Like,
then you correct that. Oh, you corrected her out loud. Oh, I gotta take time off.
Then they start yelling at them.
Right? Pretty soon we start learning. Just like we learned that the rules in my house are different than the rules at Grandma's house, right? Pretty soon they're going to understand. They will understand your expectations and meet them. And your kids are dying to meet your expectations, as long as they know what they are and you reinforce them. Okay? This is the basics of PAT and bonus PAT. You can even get creative with, let's say you have 1 or 2 kids, let's call them Larry, that never, ever complies. And Larry's job is to figure out how a way to mess this all up. You can even pull Larry aside and say, Larry, this is unacceptable behavior. We can't do this. You ruined it. So here's what's going to happen. From now on, you cannot destroy the rest of the class's PAT. But I'm going to give the class PAT every time you are behaving. So every time Larry does good, I can put some minutes on the board. And every time Larry does bad, I have another thing for him. We'll talk about next time we meet. Okay? So this is the carrot. We're going to get to the stick next session, called refocus.
Also, isn't there individual bonus that you can give to them?
You can. That's what I'm talking about. You can have an individual plan for Larry. Larry, every time you do well, the whole class benefits. And every time you don't do well, I'm not penalizing the class. Just you and I will have a discussion about that.
Okay.
And the point is that it begins to make Larry the hero of the class. Because every time Larry does good, he's getting more minutes. And pretty soon you'll find that you can diminish Larry's individual plan, and eventually it'll just kind of die off on its own natural causes. And Larry's being compliant and no problems anymore. It works. And it works well. What we're doing is called positive reinforcement. We are positively reinforcing the behavior that we want. How many of you heard that you should ignore bad behavior and just reinforce the good behavior that you want? Have you heard that in your credentialing classes? How does it work?
I don't know how many times I said today, I really like the way Ashley is sitting, and everyone else is still laying on the floor. It does not work.
I use high five to try to get their attention, and whenever I see a student from a certain table do it, I say thank you, table 5. And then other people start noticing, and then table 4 will do it. And then some at table 3 will do it.
When having visited a lot of you have them set up in groups. You can also have that going as a competition up there, which I think is huge, especially the older kids. That's all it's about, is beating the crap out of each
the
other.
older ones, like sometimes they'll be like, "Oh, thank you, Ashley, for turning in your thing," and then they're like,
Yeah. Oh, I got it.
"I got it, I did it." Oh, I'm like, "Okay, thank you. You did it too. Yeah, and then it's like 5 of them, so it's like, yeah, even just like the verbal reward sometimes for
Well,
them.
they even, like high school kids, it makes me laugh that they even like stupid little stickers.
Yeah.
Stickers.
Like if you
I
have a
can give you
star or
stickers.
whatever, they're like, can I
And
get it?
they'll
I'm like,
remind you,
are you
well, where's
two?
my sticker at?
Where's my stamp?
Where's
my
my
Tootsie
stamp
Roll?
at?
What happens if you get to 30 minutes or more? Like,
Is it more than 30 is probably good too, because
Do you give
you're
them
doing
that-
an
all that
academic
time then?
project, right? I
You
don't
just go
wanna-
with it.
You need to be careful with it, right? But think about what you're doing with your PAT. Some of them are real simple, like a snowball fight. Have you ever heard of snowball fights?
We're gonna do some stuff after break too.
Snowball fight is where the kids write questions on one side and the answers on the other, and they wad it up into a ball. And then they have a contest to see who can get the most snowballs on which side of the room. Stop! I said stop. Okay, open it up. All right, now we're going to give points because it's a contest for answering the question. Read the question. And okay, and maybe the name of the kid that wrote it's on there. And then you ask that kid, did he get it right? Right? And you're reviewing for a test or something. The kids, they think that's hilarious. I saw another one where they took a beach ball
Yes,
and they wrote topics.
I was gonna do that.
They wrote topics on the different colors, and they batted the ball around, and then you blow a whistle, or you say stop, or something, or drop, or whatever, and the kid catches it, and then whatever colors point, or they roll a dice that tells them what color, or I don't remember all the rules, but they love that kind of crazy, get out of their seats, and think about your kinesthetic learners that are in class, that are being active all of a sudden, and they're learning.
And most kids are competitive too. So, like, you can get the 99-cent, dollar store at the beach ball, and we had it where you just whatever the test was or whatever, you just wrote all the questions on there, like study questions, and then boom, 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 we're hitting it. We're playing volleyball, and whoever ends up with it has to pick a question and answer it. And that way they can pick the question they're comfortable with, so they don't look like an idiot. Unless they're the kid that hasn't done anything, and then they might look like an idiot, but it's still fun, right? And so that was a fun activity as well.
There are games you can play that are on a football field. I like baseball, so I made a baseball game. And I had the teams divided up, and then I made them sit in 2 long lines, and then they had to rotate. So whoever was the first chair was the one that was at bat. And they would be offered a single, double, triple, or home run question. Obviously, singles were easy, home runs were harder, and I don't remember all the questions I had, but let's say parts of speech. And so the kid gets up, I want a single. All right, give me 2 common nouns and a proper noun. All right, so they have to give. If they couldn't do it, they were out. And if their team helped them, they were out. Right? And 3 outs, and what was the other team's turn? And we could ask questions, reviewing for something. That was simple. The key to PAT is it must be cheap. In other words, it doesn't take a lot of planning, and it doesn't cost you any money.
Oh, there's what you were just saying.
Okay? It doesn't require a lot of planning or expense. You've got to be able to pull it out. Adaptable to different your styles, and it can be used to develop certain behaviors with students. Okay? What is the goal here? They're beginning to manage what? Their time. Okay, so for instance, let's say that you have a math handout, or you say, turn to page 432, I want you to answer questions 1 through 6. And then you say, we have 15 minutes to get this done. If everyone can get it done accurately, because you can't just write answers, in 15 minutes, we'll give you 3 extra bonus minutes. And if you can get it done in less, whatever leftover time we have, we'll just add it. By the way, what is that doing to your instructional minutes for the day, let alone for PAT? You're getting more minutes, aren't you? You're getting more instructional minutes that day, let alone getting more time for your PAT. When kids begin to manage their time, you will have more instructional minutes. And you will have less nagging going on. Come on, I told you to sit down, right? Because they're like, no, I'm going to miss out on the PAT. Come on, whatever it is. Okay? Any questions so far?
Okay, are we good?
We're good.
Right before break, I'm just going to show you a video somebody brought to our attention. It's really kind of cool. It goes with rapport, but I didn't have it when I did rapport. So we're gonna play this cute little video. What I did last time. So last class, like last series, I was leaning against this, and it did that, and I went, "Ooh, excuse me," and he was standing in the back, and he just lost it.
Couldn't stop laughing. I shouldn't have laughed, but I was excited.
So this is empathy versus sympathy, and I think it's such an awesome difference to see this.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, "I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed." And then we look and we say, "Hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone." Sympathy is, "Ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich?" Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with "at least." And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, "I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me." Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Aww.
Wasn't that good? All right, so you got break. Stop talking. And we're doing games when you get back, so don't be gone too long.
10 minutes?
10? Yeah, let's go 10. Or 5. Between 5 and 10.
Set timer 10 minutes.
I might skip.
Oh, I'm pretty sure someone wants to read the jump scare.
I was going to have a brainstorm ideas, but we've been throwing a bunch out.
There's one on the Lucian, and there's a website called
You're on video, you want to see it, look at it.
And then it's pretty cool. And then we'll go to the beak. Yeah, then we got the games. Cool. And we can debrief. This is the coolest one. Because anybody can do it, so I did questions also. You ever seen this where there's a problem on one side and an answer on the other?
No, this is for these are our school and it's the keeping home.
Everybody has a card?
Yeah, and then you pair up, or you do your card.
Oh, no, this is different.
Okay.
This is different. Basically, everybody gets a card, and so everybody has a question and an answer.
Yeah.
So you have to pay attention, because if you're the one that, if somebody reads their question and you're the answer, you have to say, I got 54.
Okay.
And then you read your question, and whoever has that one says, whoever has the answer to that has, so everybody has to be engaged and paying attention, or they'll succeed.
I try to do that in my classes.
Well, and I did it with,
Yeah.
I did different subjects, so like, I did PE, it's really cool. And it's the pressure, like you can say, okay, let's see if we can do this again, everybody get a new card, let's see if we can do it in under 5, and then you can even reward with PATs. But this would be a PAT activity that you could brief, I mean, no matter what it is, test, just general subjects. Well, and I know that some of the classrooms I've been to, they have really, you guys have some really cool projects. I mean, little like math sites, and I'm not even gonna have this part when I taught. And cute little math graphics and. What's Kahoots?
It's,
OOT.
it's like, oh,
There's another one too, that they do like, they can do it on their phones or on their.
Oh, Quizlet?
Oh,
yeah.
Each question tells you who's in the lead.
yeah, you do it as team.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what one of the kids, teachers was doing, and the kids were so into it. Oh my gosh.
That's PAT.
Did you have any PDs?
They loved it.
Oh, yeah.
And she was like, okay, let's go, we're gonna do this. And then,
They pick funny names and then it
yes.
says, you know, Rose Emily or.
Well, and then she had a team of like 4, and then after they did a round, then she mixed them up, and they were like, no, don't mess it up, we had a good team. It was cool.
And sometimes, yeah, you can program it to make the teams for you with all the names that are.
Oh, yeah.
I've never done team, but I'll.
How fun. I wish I was teaching still. But I'm not.
Oh, yeah.
Bless you, bless you, bless you.
Thank you.
I think she's allergic to you, Steve.
You can always go back. You can, right?
I can. Every time I want to go back though, something happens medically and I go, oh, okay, I get it. You know, like, I've even thought about going over to Minarets, and my thing was college stuff. So I was gonna go over there and say, hey, how about I run the College Career Center, or room, or whatever the heck, because the one counselor they have, I mean, she kind of does everything. So I thought I could do that part-time, but I don't know that I can be consistent enough, because every couple of years I end up in the hospital.
That'll also avoid your disability.
And it avoids my disability. And I'd have to start all over again with the process, and that was a huge delay. It's a nightmare.
Years.
I mean, because I want to do it, part of me, to get caught up with my benefits. Like, I was 2 years short of full benefits. So thankfully, my spouse, I can be on that insurance, but prior to that, I was on Obamacare. And because I have to have specialists, nobody in Fresno takes the insurance. So it was really tough. And I mean, I have probably 20 specialists, and I couldn't see any of them for about 3-4 years. It really messed up everything. So part of me wants to really go back, but then, like this tonight will wipe me out, and I'll be down tomorrow.
So you teach one.
What's that mean with the,
So you have all sophomores?
do this?
Oh,
That's the
Do you
charade.
have
no.
a student
Okay,
named Carlos?
Heads up.
No, Carlos
Heads up.
Cardenas? No.
Are we all here?
No.
I need to
What if you
find
play
the
heads up with
teachers who teach sophomores, because
scientists or?
I don't know what's going on
If
in
you,
other
but you have
classes,
to, I don't know,
You
can
have
you,
to,
Going so
you
well
have
in
to
mine.
do cards instead of computer.
but you can do it, totally.
yeah, behavior mostly.
Who am I? You gotta take it to the forehead.
Like,
one
I
person.
wonder
I've done that
myself,
with
are you
folks.
like this and all your
Or on their backs,
just
and they'll go up and have that, huh?
Yeah, we used to do that at parties.
Right?
Yeah, all the time.
But yeah, exactly.
If you really wanted to teach your kids, you could teach them drinking games and do it with quiz stuff. Just saying.
We used to play.
That's on tape.
I'm kidding, Todd, kidding.
We used to play. We used to start dining table out of the dining room.
All of them were like, in front of the class. Oh, don't forget you
ping
have
pong
detention
table, but
the
it
first
wasn't
year.
your time.
Yeah.
You know, so we're playing with root beer.
Those teachers are about that way.
They had me do during a rally, you know. They made me get out, and I'm the old one, and they had me go against one of the young teachers who just recently gotten out of college, and they had us do soda pong in front of the whole school, and everybody was like, Mr. I can't even think of who it was now, but Mr. So-and-so, Mr. So-and-so. And I was like, okay, whatever, guess who won? And they were like, wait, Miss Taylor, you know what that says about you? I'm like, no.
I used to tell them that, so I went to a Christmas party with a bunch of teachers and I won, I think like, do you play this all the time? I'm like, no, it's called good hand-eye coordination.
Right.
And you all have been drinking a lot more beer than I have.
And what does that say?
So,
Are we all here? Yeah.
I think so.
All right. This video this is the last thing you're going to have to sit and do. The rest of today is games after that.
The rest of the time is PAT.
PAT, yes, absolutely.
This is a video demo in the study group activity in meeting
It's not that dry the whole time.
Jones Tools for Teaching
Or maybe it is.
Study Group Activity Guide. In this activity, we'll be practicing introducing the concept of PAT to our students. Before introducing PAT, or preferred activity time, to your students, determine the time frame for giving PAT to your students, and build your daily schedule around it. In this example, we will have PAT once a week on Fridays for the last half of the class period. The first thing you will need to do, of course, is explain preferred activity time to your class.
Alright guys, today I'm going to talk to you guys about PAT time, which is preferred activity time. We're going to do this every Friday, and it's determined by your guys' behavior and how well you guys engage and participate in the classroom. So you can gain points for PAT time and lose points depending on that. And our PAT time is just thinking about different games and activities that we do on Fridays.
After you have explained PAT to your class, give them a free PAT sample so that they can see how it might actually work in the classroom.
Oh, he's got a leg on the last one. Brittany is saying with the letter we looking for. Sorry, man. Oh, man. You're not a leg. Mackenzie. H.
After the sample
Whoa.
PAT is concluded, ask your students if they would like to have PAT as part of their normal classroom routine.
Alright, what do you guys think about Hangman?
I like that idea. That's the carrot right there.
Lastly, explain how students can both gain and lose their PAT time based on their behavior.
Alright, so remember, it's PAT time is controlled by you guys. So your behavior, the way you're engaged and participating in class is really going to how much time you can spend being able to do these activities.
With the basics of PAT now introduced to your students, you are now ready to utilize the benefit of PAT in your everyday classroom.
That's it. We love short videos. I just want to know what district he works for, that his dress code is jeans and a t-shirt in a classroom. Oh, could be, absolutely. All right. So I'm not going to make you guys stand in a circle, but you're going to have to stand up. And I'm going to do, this is an activity you can do with the kids. I'm going to get a quiz thing on here. But basically, PAT time, have the kids stand up, and then, you know, you flip the, I don't even know if we can, yeah, everybody else stand up. And so, like, I would flip it to her. Terrible throw, I'm so sorry. And then she would have to answer the question that I would give her. So, for instance, Steve, think of a question of something you just asked. Something easy. What is PAT stand
Classroom
for?
expectations. Give me an ingredient for classroom expectations.
One more time?
Classroom expectations.
Is anything about classroom
Something that we talked about with classroom
Just
expectations.
having high expectations.
High behavior and academic
Meaning
expectations.
business.
Good. Now, what do we should do?
And then I'm gonna toss it to somebody else?
Yes. I'm gonna go ahead and let you come up with questions because I'm too slow to get it on my phone.
Tell us about the distances in proximity.
My notes.
Can I?
Brains off. So you're supposed to be within 2 desks,
2 seats away.
2 seats away.
How many zones are there? 3. Okay, throw it to someone else. What color are the zones? Red, yellow, green. Throw it to somebody else. What does green zone mean?
It's not here for that class.
You can ask a part.
Are you close in the green zone? Oh, no.
And you're close, you know they're not talking. And the further away they are, the red zone?
That would be the
Yeah.
green zone.
Oh, the green zone, the further away?
Because what are kids doing?
You're getting crazy.
They've got the green light
green light,
to.
they're
Start doing it.
far away.
Okay. I have it opposite.
Okay, throw it to someone else. What's the yellow zone?
The yellow zone's like the just right zone. You're not too close, but yet you're not too far. So
Correct.
they're reluctant to goof off. They're second guessing it.
Good. And the red zone.
The red zone is when you're really in close to their proximity, so that they're wishing they wouldn't have acted up. Acted up. I didn't say that right. So they might maybe start paying attention or get to their work versus sitting there and chit chatting or being on their phone or something like that.
Good.
I just want to tell you the socks are clean. They're brand new.
Time out for a second.
I can ask you a question while you're doing that. Go ahead.
I was like, I don't know. Somebody catch it.
So, level of questioning. We talked about Costa's levels of questioning. What is level 1 considered?
Recall question.
Yeah, stuff you can find in text. All right, Costa's level 3.
Man, it's the one before applying. Because 4 is applying. It's 3.
It's actually, we only have, the ones we talked about were 3. We didn't, I mean, I showed you the circle of knowledge or whatever it was.
When is that one applied?
So, DOK or whatever. So, 3rd is applying.
Oh, okay, cool.
So, for those of you that weren't here, we talked about the levels of Costa's questioning. You know, first one is find it in text, second one is a little deeper, and third is applying it to the world and their lives and those things. Go ahead.
What does it teach to?
How you like your classroom expectations for your students?
It's a little more than that.
You're right.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's not always procedures, but
This is, yeah, still what we would say is any behavior that I'm holding them accountable for, I've taught them.
yes.
Yeah. Good. All right. What is a VIP?
Oh, what was that?
A VIP.
A very important person.
No,
Have you told us that?
I did even today. A
Visual
in
instruction
Plan.
plan.
Good.
Good save. Good save.
Got it.
Okay, so real quick, while we're doing this, how can you make this competitive? Because I think with teenagers, particularly at this point, teens, you could even do 4 corners. Like I know I had 40-42 in my class all the time. So we would do 4 corners so I could at least feel like I could breathe. And then they were in different groups, and you could even have them line up by height, whatever, make it fun, but make it competitive. Right? And so you keep score. You could even say the team that wins. Well, this is a PAT activity itself, so you really wouldn't want to. But you could do this. We can keep going if you want, or you could just see how. Like, do you see how this can engage them? Especially if you broke it into competitive. With little kids, you can have them sit. Makes it a lot more controlled and maybe a little more fun. High schoolers are going to probably like trying to line this at each other's face. That's why I did sock, or I did a gopher ball. You guys probably know what gopher balls are. I love those things. Gopher ball?
Gopher.
You buy them from the Gopher Company, but they're little
Dodgeball.
dodgeballs. And we did all kinds of garbage with it now, but probably not academic stuff.
But you don't get to where like middle school the kids will just let it fall because they don't want to be answering.
Well, and then
questions.
if they do that, you go, oh, congratulations, you get 2 questions, right? And then, you know, if person closest, or they'll go, that wasn't me, that was her, or whatever. And then you go, okay, you both get a question. I mean, you know, if they want to avoid, make it worse. What were you asking?
So, like, what kind of questions would you ask for, like, the little ones, for, like, kinder and first grade, like?
What is today? What day of the week is today? What holiday's coming up? You know, I mean, anything that you've been talking about, you can turn it into questions.
What kind of letter do we start a sentence with?
Yeah. You know what I mean? And that said, we talked about tactile and physiological or whatever. Like if you're doing spelling, that's one thing you can do is give every kid a letter and then make them stand up when they have to spell. And tactile, it makes them think. I mean, I know some kids aren't at the spelling level yet, but how cool would that be for 3 kids to figure out how to spell cat? And I'm the T, and you're the A, and you're the C, and we're like, okay. And then you also see who your leaders are in that regard, right? Because they're bossing everybody and figuring it all out, because they can't stand when something's not done, or they can't stand the quiet, whatever. Are there any other questions about something like this? Because my favorite one's next. My favorite game.
I said, well, let's get to it.
All right. Are we good?
Yeah.
All right. So you are going to sit for a second, but everybody's getting a card. Okay?
Here's a question. Where did they move the capital of California after the Great Flood of 1865? Where did they move it to after the flood in Sacramento in 1865?
There's going to be a couple of you are going to have extra.
I mean, I knew someone was scoring once you talked about that, but.
A couple of you will have 2. So.
I was thinking it was having to go there and Sacramento.
All right. So this game I learned like the eons ago. And I've only done it once in my class because I don't think I was that organized, frankly. So everybody has at least 1 card. On one side it has a question. On the other side it has an answer. What does yours say? Yeah. Okay, so if you have the end or the start, it's going to say end or start, and it won't be a complete card. For this purpose, I did some PE questions, I did history. I wanted to make a point that you could do it with anything. I could have given you one. Okay, so what happens is this. She has start, so she would stand up and say, I have start, and then, go ahead, and then you're going to read your question.
I have start. What is 6 times 3?
Now you stand up and say, I have 18. And then you can sit down, and now you're reading your question.
What is 30 divided by 6?
3 divided by 6?
30 divided by 6.
I have
5. What is an 8-letter word for fatherly?
Fatherly?
paternal? Yes.
Come on.
That's exactly what my kid did when we practiced. She's off.
Maybe that's not the right word. What is the body's main force of energy?
Carbohydrates.
Stand up. And then she can sit.
Okay. I got carbohydrates. And then I do the question on the back.
Yes.
What is 25 minus 3?
I got 42. What party did Hitler lead?
I got Nazi party.
It's a Nazi.
Oh my god. What is 2 divided by 100?
Oh, come on. Somebody's got it.
Oh, I got 50, but that doesn't answer that.
100 divided by 2.
Yeah.
100 divided by 2?
She said 2 divided by 100.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
That's
100 divided by 2.
Sorry.
I always read it wrong.
How many groups do you get if you split 12 apples in groups of 3?
I got 4. Which of the following is not an Olympic sport? Basketball, cricket, or swimming? I got cricket. What is 9 times 6?
I have AT&T.
When I read it, I thought she was talking about I got 4.
9 times 6?
Yeah. What is the quotient in 100 divided by 50? 50 divided by 100? No.
50? No, 100 divided by 50.
100 divided by 50?
2.
Oh, I got 2. Which of these types of exercises is anaerobic? 100-meter sprint, yoga, walking.
Okay, wait, hold on. For those, you don't need to know the answer. You just have to be able to look and be like, oh yeah, I got one of them. Like, you don't
So you're
really
kind
need
of
to
learning
know.
something, I guess.
Well,
You could in a science class have all 3 answers.
yeah, I didn't make it complicated
Oh, okay.
because I wanted to make sure you guys got it.
Even if you- it's helpful because even if you didn't know now, just by like osmosis.
Yeah, true.
No science.
Did you already read the question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got sprint. What is 10 times 7?
10 times 7.
Oh, I got 70. What is 849 minus 788?
849.
788.
Tammy said it sounds like a phone number. 867. Oh my god.
Am I getting
Who got it?
It might be her other way. I need a calculator.
Wait, this might be this one. Oh. Here you go. You can solve it.
I'll do it. 61. Does anyone have, I got 61. I can't see.
The naming part of a sentence is called. The naming part? Is that supposed to be no? Oh.
Who has noun? You do?
Okay. I have noun. What number has 200, 7 tens, and 6 ones?
I've got 276. What is 17 plus 43?
What year did the Civil War end?
I'm assuming it was in 1865. What number is equal to 900 plus 60 plus 4?
I got 964. What is 58 plus 33?
Wait, say it again.
58
There's no
plus
math
33?
majors in this.
80? Is that 80?
We're like,
We got it right
I
here.
got 91. What's the value of 10 digits in the number 586? It's 80.
80? Oh, I got 80. How many wives did Henry VIII have?
I don't have it, but I know.
Gonna guess 6. No,
What is it?
6. I got 6 finished.
Finished. Okay. So here's how you're going to make this more competitive. I don't want to keep the same cards though. So we can do it with, you can do it with a time limit. So now that you guys are familiar with it, we can mix the cards up and see how fast we can get it done. Will you help me mix the cards up? So, because now there shouldn't be a whole lot of questions.
Yeah, we're not good at math.
Yeah, right.
I forget what I was thinking. But I never understood how the game went.
There's an extra one.
The mitochondrial powerhouse of the cell.
It is
I just gave it.
But I think they asked for main source of energy. I think that's what the question is.
How many did they get?
Do you guys use memes?
Here, you can give 2. I already gave them and
I
them, I
think that'd be
think.
a cool idea to use. Make memes.
Oh, these are new. Thank you.
Did you guys get yours?
Yeah.
You did, right? If you have extra, this table can get more than one.
One? We all need. Might be coming in on Friday.
How many extra do you have?
Yeah, see, that's why I was trying
They
to.
can have the extra. Okay, where's my start? And we'll start the timer. You start it? Okay, wait. Let me get the. Woo!
How much time do you have?
How much time do you think?
Where do you want to stop?
4 minutes.
Want to say 4 minutes?
2 minutes.
2 minutes?
Oh.
Okay, 3 minutes.
I can name that tune, Andy.
Let's do 3. All right. Get ready. What do you win? PAT time. I don't know.
We get to leave early?
They get
That could be.
To practice our PETs before.
I'll tell you what we got.
That's always a good one.
Nothing. I think that's.
Oh, she's ready. How many? Well, I already started it.
We can let
You
it
guys
go.
gonna start?
Okay, so if you finish in 3 minutes, we will do the evaluation
Oh my God.
immediately after. If you don't finish in 3 minutes, we will play another game.
Yeah, there you go.
You should have left it.
Okay, hold on. Are you ready?
I'm stressed.
Tell them when you're ready.
Stressed.
I'll start when the
Know
first
your
person
answers.
starts.
What is 6 times 3?
You have to stand up.
What is 30 divided by 6?
Wait. I have.
Well, can we restart?
Started over.
I said I got 18.
Oh, I didn't hear you.
Yeah, she said it.
Okay, wait. I'll start you over because I screwed it up then. Okay, are you ready?
You have to say your.
Go ahead.
What is 6 times 3?
I got 18. What is 30 divided by 6? I got 5. What is an 8-letter word for fatherly?
I got paternal. What is the body's main source of energy?
I got carbohydrates. What is 25 minus 3?
I got 22. What party did Hitler lead?
I got the Nazi party. What is 100 divided by 2?
I got 50. How many groups do you get if you split 12 apples into groups of 3?
I got 4. Which of the following is not an Olympic sport? Basketball, cricket, or swimming?
I got cricket. What is 9 times 6? What is 9 times 6? 54.
Oh, I got 54. What is the quotient in 100 divided by 50?
I got 2. Which of these types of exercise is anaerobic? 100-meter sprint, yoga, or walking?
I got sprint. What is 10 times 7?
I got 70. What is 849 minus 788?
It's the 61.
61. I got 61. The naming part of a sentence is called.
I got noun. What number has 200, 7 tens, and 6 ones?
I got 276. What is 17 plus 43?
I got 6. What year did the Civil War end?
I got 1865. What number is equal to 900 plus 60 plus 4?
I got 964. What is 58 plus 33?
I got 91. What is the value of the tens digit and the number 586? Oh, I got 6 and I'm finished.
Whoa. All right, so do you see how that got competitive and you guys even knew the answers and it was still fun? So I would make sure that, like we were talking about numbers place, those are all things that are fairly younger. And then I incorporated some PE stuff in there. It can be done with any class. Do what? Oh, that was fun. All right, so simple, fun. These are things that you do for your PAT. I mean, you can create them. There's a book, I don't know, it's probably out of print now, but called Silver Bullet. It's a PE book about activities you can do, group building, team building, stuff like that. Those are awesome things. You can look up group building stuff and come up with a plethora of games. And then Steve, you said there was a PAT site?
On their blue paper.
On your blue paper.
Homework. Implement PAT and show us in a printed schedule where you included it. Describe in a short paragraph how PAT worked within your class. Provide a list of PAT activities you implemented or plan on implementing. And then evaluation is on your agenda.
Hey, keep in mind that list of activities, every